Hi, I'm Jake Hudson from GHD, and with the City of Petaluma, we are pleased to present the city's draft local roadway safety plan. So let's start with a little bit of background. A local roadway safety plan is a process and framework document that provides the city guidance for assessing and addressing traffic safety issues across several disciplines, such as engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency services. This document is also particularly important now as having an adopted local roadway safety plan is an eligibility requirement for grant funding programs that the city often applies for. So the first step in developing this plan is establishing its vision and goals. And so for this, we're recommending what's coined as Vision Zero, essentially striving to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries over a period of time. And to do this, a sustained and proactive approach at improving the city's transportation systems with new focus on human behavior is what's necessary. So the next step is to understand the city's collision trends over the last several years. And what we found in analyzing that is that the number of overall collisions have been on the decline. However, there are still specific areas that the city has and could focus its efforts to best address traffic safety moving forward. As part of that analysis, we also found that traffic collisions are primarily concentrated along the Washington and D Street corridors, as you can see in the heat map. Rear ends, mainly due to unsafe speed, are the most prominent collision type, followed by broadside collisions resulting from failing to obey traffic controls or yielding the right-of-way. So now focusing on pedestrian collisions only, the total annual number of incidences have been on the decline over the last several years, with a spike in 2019. We see pedestrian collisions primarily concentrated in the vicinity of 4th Street between Washington and D Street. Whereas with bicycle collisions, the number has remained relatively static over the last several years. Bicycle collisions do have a clear concentration along the Washington Street corridor on both sides of 101. So looking at the primary factors leading to those collisions, speeding is number one, as is the case in most municipalities. For the city of Petaluma, that's followed by failing to yield right-of-way, which includes running red lights and stop signs, and then followed by unsafe passing and turning maneuvers. So the next step is to take all that information and identify the citywide systemic issue areas that the city can best focus its safety efforts and resources on. So based off of collision analysis, input from partner agencies, and from public feedback, we're building these recommended emphasis areas and a toolbox approach of the types of measures that can be taken to mitigate those patterns. And those types of measures include focusing on making changes at high incident locations, improving intersection visibility, making efforts to reduce speeding, making efforts to reduce impaired driving, and another high collision pattern in the city are on-street parking maneuvers. So looking at the geometry and things that are resulting in parking maneuver collisions and making changes to reduce those. In addition to systemic emphasis areas, we've also identified the top collision rate intersections within the city, the predominant collision patterns at those locations, and recommendations for measures that may be implemented to counter those patterns. We do this for automobile, bicycle, and pedestrian collisions. And again, within that primary concentration of collisions along D Street and Washington is where we see most of the top locations and intersections. So at each of these locations, the report will recommend numerous potential improvements, including new traffic controls, improving or upgrading existing traffic controls, modifying intersection geometry, focused enforcement for speeding, for DUIs, education campaigns, and so on. So now at this point in the plan development, our goal is to evolve our draft findings and recommendations with more input from the community at large. And to do that, we've built a traffic safety dashboard, an interactive public engagement tool, which you can access below. We're asking our community to use these tools to provide us more background and insight based off of their personal experiences on the city's traffic safety issues that we may not yet have captured with our raw data or other input that we've received to date. And so, again, we highly encourage you to help us develop this plan by participating in those surveys, using that dashboard and the interactive map below. And I just want to close by just thanking you sincerely for your time.